Why? Oh, it's Puppy. Hi, baby. Good. He can't live without me. Alright, so this is my update to my Urban Decay, This is going to be my update to my 2 weeks one palette. I've been using the Urban Decay Gwen Stefani palette for the last couple of weeks. I'm gonna start off with on a bad note here because honestly, after using it for 2 weeks, the only thing that I truly love about this palette is the fact that it says Gwen Stefani on it. Yeah. It's kind of a bummer. In my intro video, I mentioned that a lot of these shades are very similar in tone to me, and I felt uninspired. And after using it for 2 weeks, I started noticing that a lot of my eye looks looked very similar. They looked the same basically because they are very close in shade. So let me just swatch some of these just as an example. Do you see the similarities? I think on my skin tone, they just kind of show up almost very similar. So it's kind of a bummer. I did post pictures of swatches on my Instagram, and I will include them in this video for those of you that don't have Instagram or Snapchat, because if you follow me on both of those, then you may have seen 1 or 2 looks out of this palette. The shadows that I actually enjoy using is these right here. This is Blackout. This one right here is called Serious, and this one is called Punk, which is a really beautiful, like chocolatey reddish brown color. It's really pretty. I did find that this gray shadow right here kind of faded away. I used it a few times just using the Urban Decay Primer Potion, and I noticed that it faded away. So then the next time that I used it, I put the primer potion and then I put the MAC Soft Ochre paint pot over top, and it still faded away a little bit. So it's just a shadow that doesn't hold its intensity. I also enjoy these, although they are similar. They slightly show up differently on my eyes, but not too much, to be honest. I'm actually wearing those 3 on my eyes today, and you can see that it just looks like I just put a brown shadow. There's not a lot of dimension is what I'm trying to say. And this eye look, I actually wore a very similar one yesterday, only yesterday it was a little bit more smoky. It was a very soft smoky eye, and I think I also added Punk closer to the lash line. And I actually really like that look. I don't remember if I took a picture of that one. I think I did. And by the way, a lot of my pictures are not very good. They're a little further away, so I don't even know if you can see the eye look, but I'm trying. I'm gonna keep practicing on taking better pictures of the eye look. But anyways, really like these shadows. These 3 are work very well. The matte shadows are good in this palette. This shadow right here, I posted a look on my Instagram, which is the pink shadow in this palette, and it's really, really pretty. But I did find that I was struggling a little bit with a brush. It was a lot easier for me to pick it up with my finger and then tap it on my eyelid, and I got the most pigmentation out of it. This shadow right here, which is the blue one in this palette, although I did apply it, I didn't end up wearing it. I didn't like the way that I applied it to my lower lash line, and I didn't like the way that it paired with my lid, so I ended up removing it. But just by applying it, it had a lot of pigmentation. I just don't know how well the longevity is of it. And then this gold shadow, I actually never even used, to be honest with you guys. This shadow right here, which is called Steady, the way that I wore this shadow, I tried it with other shadows, and I just feel like it doesn't have that very much glare to it. So it didn't really show up on me very much. So the way that I enjoyed it the most is as a one shadow kind of look, where it just added a little bit of sheen to my eyes, and it made my eyes look very healthy looking. I also applied it to my lower lash line. It just gave me just this really pretty glow. And then one day when I used this shadow all over the lid and nothing else, I was too lazy to reach for a highlighter, so I ended up picking it up and applying it as a highlight, and it didn't give me an intense highlight, but it gave me this glow from within because it's so smooth. Let's see if I can find a little spot right here. It's so smooth, so it didn't add like chunks of glitter on top of my cheekbone. It smoothed out really well, and it was almost undetected, if that makes sense. So I actually like the subtlety of the shadow once I used it that way. Let's talk about shimmers aside from these 3 right here. So let's talk, this is Pop, which is this one at the top, Baby, which is the one in the middle, and then these 2 actually. And let me pick up Steady just so you guys can see the similarity between Baby and Steady, which is, this is Baby and then this is Steady right here. I'll show you guys a close-up. So this right here is Pop. I don't know if you guys can see how gritty and crumbly it is. This is the same way that it actually applies on the eyes. I also tried wetting it, and it's almost a non-existent shadow because it doesn't really show up for some reason. So it's just a shadow that they should have just left out. This one right here is called Baby, and you can see how much more smooth this is compared to this. And then this right here is called Steady. You can probably see the similarity. I think this one has a little bit more pink than this one, but quite frankly on the eyes they kind of end up looking very similar, and that's what I mean about my eye looks coming out looking almost the same. This for me was a palette that was nice, like something like this where it all looks brown. It's a palette that to me is just meant to be like, okay, you pop 2 shadows on and then you're done, you know, very simple. It doesn't really inspire me to get creative or anything like that because of the similarities in the colors. So when I think of Gwen Stefani though, I don't think of shadows. So I can kind of see why they didn't add so much variety to it, because when I think of her, I think of the black liner and red lips. Not so much shadows, aside from like when she goes on the red carpet, then she does a little bit of a smoky eye and stuff like that. But aside from that, nothing else. And even in the 90s, I mean, she wore shadows, but it was like a very subtle colors, if you know what I mean. And then just bold lips. So to me, they could have easily done without all of these right here. These 3 right here, this one right here is called Blondie Bath Water, this one right here, and then this one is called Skimp. The Skimp is a bit of a, what is it called, satin finish. Do you see the similarities in this? This one has a little bit more yellow and a little bit more peach also, and then these 2 just look a little bit more on the creamy yellowy side. But when I put them on like underneath my brow bone, which is the way that I use them, they look exactly the same. There was no point for these shadows. So it's a palette that I enjoy having only because it has Gwen Stefani on it, but it's not a palette that I'm really inspired to reach for in the future. And the palette that I am going to be using for the next couple of weeks is my Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette. I just swatched this one. I want to put this one in next because I used it at the beginning of the year, and I found that some of these shadows are very crumbly. So I'm going to show you really quickly because before starting this video, I actually tried to swatch this one. But do you see that? I think some of these shadows are getting a little old. This one too, I think I tried swatching earlier and it does the same thing as this one right here. So I want to play with it because if in, you know, after using it for 2 weeks, if I find that some of the shadows are old, I'm just going to remove them out of this palette and keep the ones that are actually really good. And I'm going to be doing that with every single palette because for my 2 weeks 1 palette this year, I really want to rediscover my shadows and fall in love with some of them, you know, fall in love with them again. And then at the same time though, get rid of the ones that just don't work for me. So, and it just cut me off. That's everything for my 2 weeks 1 palette, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.